Good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're located at today. Thanks for taking the time to join us. We appreciate it. Today, we're going to take a look at ecosystem growth. It's a major focus area for a lot of companies and organizations here in 2025, and we see that trend continuing well into the future. So today, we wanted to focus on how enabling your business partners and your channel teams is really a major key to your ecosystem growth, which is going to directly translate to an increase in your revenue. One of the challenges today is that marketing teams are increasingly challenged with they've got smaller teams, shrinking budgets. The problem with this scenario is that it's a challenge for these organizations, especially when they get into a large partner or channel alliance scenario. So what we want to do is we want to explore a little bit how using technology can really streamline your processes, really give you better insight into your partners and what they're doing and how you can help them grow, because again, that directly relates back to the success of your business. So today we're going to take a look at kind of some of the key factors around ecosystem growth. We've got 4 topics that we want to go through, and then we're going to talk a little bit about our technology, which is MarcomCentral and Fusion Pro. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on those solutions. We really want to talk more about the topic and the theory today. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Eric Hazard. Eric Hazard is one of our senior product marketing managers here. He's been working with a solution for well over 10 years, a lot longer than I have. So I don't want to steal his thunder. Eric, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Robert. I appreciate it. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I appreciate your time here today. I think we're scheduled for 45 minutes. We probably won't take the entire time. We want to make this brief, kind of give a little bit of thought leadership here of some trends that we see in the marketplace. And then, of course, a quick snapshot into MarcomCentral and how we can kind of solve a lot of those issues that we're seeing inside those channel markets. As Robert mentioned, I've been with Marcom and Rico now for a number of years, held several roles. So I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about the product. And let's just go ahead and dive right in. So who we are and what we do. Very simply put, MarcomCentral is a central hub for partner and channel marketing success, where Fusion Pro is the engine that drives personalization at scale for our templates. So when we think about MarcomCentral, it is a distributed marketing platform that empowers organizations to deliver customizable, brand safe, and personalized marketing content at scale. It bridges the gap between corporate marketing teams, sales reps, partners, and resellers by giving them a single, intuitive hub to create personalized and distributed marketing materials, all while ensuring brand consistency and compliance. That's the number one goal of MarcomCentral. Now, Fusion Pro, on the other hand, is kind of the engine that drives all of this behind the scenes. It's our powerful composition and personalization engine. It's designed to create custom version and variable marketing materials at scale. It's used by enterprises, it's used by printers and marketers to generate personalized print, emails, and digital assets based on data-driven rules. So inside MarcomCentral, Fusion Pro, is the power of those dynamic templates that we're going to see later today. It's also going to allow us to co-brand, localize, and bring in personalized content, all without requiring design software or marketing team's intervention. And that's really one of the big takeaways from today is, we're looking for a force multiplier out there. Like, how do we empower the channel to focus on sales rather than content? And a tool like this will allow those users that are in dispersed field teams to access these materials, even customize them to a degree that you may have thought wasn't even possible, just because of governance or brand guidelines. So our 3 core tenets here, and this is really a core tenet really for any organization that's starting to stack their tech together. But if you're in this market about kind of consolidating assets and delivering them, the 3 tenets here are just simply centralize, customize, and distribute. When we think about these different audiences, when we're centralizing those assets, this is kind of the back of the house. I like to use a restaurant analogy sometimes in here, where the back of the house is more focused on the food prep, the menu items. They're getting things ready to serve the front of the house, which again is our customers or our wait staff. So when we're centralizing, our audience is really just the creative team, the marketing department, and all our internal operations. So we think about digital asset management. We think about asset control. We think about a single source of truth, and that's something that's thrown around quite a bit. And there's other applications that do it, but not to the degree that we're going to talk about today, right? Some of those other things that when we start talking about integrations, which will be on the next slide about stacking our tech, this is where we start to use those tools that we use every day in our job, right? And we're hopefully using the best tools out there. That's generally where we're kind of focused on, is working with the best products that serve those needs. And so when you're centralizing assets, we can connect to HubSpot, we can connect to Slack, we can connect to WordPress, Canva, Zapier opens up a lot of doors in here. And that's about connecting those things behind the scenes so that they all work as a unified front before we get into our external ops, which leads us to customization. So now our audience changes from the field teams to the distributors to our channel partners, anybody outside our organization or outside of our design team that's going to need access to these materials. So we can start with a web-based portal, which is, of course, what MarcomCentral is. It is a cloud-based SaaS application. We're talking about driving data by personal information. We're mitigating risk. We're maintaining brand compliance. And we also have the availability to segment our audience. So those are really critical in lines of business, that we don't intermingle those two, especially if we're talking about dealer channels that may have preferred rates versus more of the standard channel. So there's a different audience in there that we're talking to, but when we're starting to customize this is where Fusion Pro starts to come in. That's the engine that drives that. We plug into native applications like InDesign and Acrobat so that we can actually facilitate these types of smart templates, if you will. Now, once we have all these things in place, what we need to do is get it into the hands of our people to produce. So whether or not the audience for distribution is your in-house production team, whether or not it's commercial printers, your PSP vendors that you work with, or anybody in a fulfillment operations. Now, one thing we're going to talk about today too is multiple file delivery. So not everything is print-based. So we need to serve customers in a digital world as well as maybe print output. So that gives us multi-channel distribution, sometimes called omni-channel distribution. We have e-commerce that's going to be wrapped inside of this. So again, we have shopping carts, and we can track expenditures through cost centers. We can assign user budgets to individuals. There's all kinds of ways for individuals to pay for these, as well as credit cards. So we can open up the processing for those orders as well. But this is where you start to automate those workflows from a production standpoint. So there's a host of integrations that allow and facilitate that on the back end, like Rico's RPD application. There's Avanti. And then we're also going to have analytics and reporting that actually show us and maximize our ROI and our investment. So those are the things that we're talking about in here: simply centralizing your assets, the ability to customize those assets to people in the field, and then distribute them to the people that need them, whether or not they're print or digitally delivered. And when we talk about integration partners that grow your ecosystem, this is where we're bringing a lot more online in here. So if you take a quick look through this list in here, and there's more coming online daily. But the first one is a seamless asset and content workflow integration. So if we're using tools like this, right, how do we grow that ecosystem? Well, we want to use tools that we use every day, like possibly Dropbox, Google Drive, or OneDrive. Maybe that's where all our assets used to live, but now we're bringing them into more sophisticated tools so we can customize them and then actually distribute them. We talk about marketing automation and CRM connectivity. So we'll talk about HubSpot if you guys are managing websites, if you're doing Marketo or CRM integrations with Salesforce. We also offer email integrations to those same applications like Salesforce Marketing Cloud and Oracle Marketing Cloud and Marketo. But you can also bring it into the backside of the house for collaborative and productivity tools like Slack, Zapier, as I mentioned earlier, Asana, Monday.com, Trello, and Typeform. These are all tools that we would use on the back end for a collaborative productivity in our building of these assets. But we can also serve our designers or the creative and brand assets in the ecosystem, like the Adobe Creative Suite. We can integrate into digital asset management tools like Binder. And in fact, Marcom has its own digital asset management tool called simply Marcom Gather that's fully integrated into our system. We talk about advanced production, visuals, and procurement support. So now we're punching out for web services and even procurement systems like Sparkfly, which is really relegated to the restaurant industry, but SAP, InFocus Switch, procurement punch outs. So now we can actually bring in not only printed goods or digital goods, now we can bring in soft goods or hard goods that we're actually delivering in a promotional environment. And a new one that I should mention on this list in here is Exhibit Force. So that opens up another avenue in here if we're doing conventions and trade shows. So now we can actually start to integrate for materials that can be supplied to a trade show, whether or not be the booth, the physical booth itself, or the actual large format printing that's required to set up those booths. So that's now starts to get a little farther reach into those integrations and stacking that tech that actually serve our client base. And then finally, automation and analytics and scalability. So Salesforce is, of course, one of those, but WordPress and Workfront and Tableau, which actually powers our intelligence on the back end that we'll eventually see at the end of the session today. So again, a lot of these partners are tools that you may be already using today. And the idea is to leverage them to work together, right, as a force multiplier so that we're empowering the channel to focus on sales and not the content, right? Everything is connected. So my designers do their job. They're pushing things along, even from a work management or a product management. Once it's approved, right, all those tools are automated to bring it into our websites, like possibly HubSpot, or bringing it into MarcomCentral to be delivered or customizable from our field members, and then distributor as well. So all along the way, there's ways to integrate this and automate those systems to actually boost productivity. And the four main areas that we're going to kind of focus on today are in our components of growth is simply the empower partners. We're going to talk about impactful and scalable personalization. We're going to talk about how we measure impact and maximize results. And we're also going to scale with confidence because, again, we're locking down elements within the system. So when we empower partners, we want to give your partners the same marketing power as your internal teams with intuitive, on-demand access to customizable, brand-safe assets. That's the point of it. Empower those field teams to help themselves and self-serve. It actually takes a load off the marketing team. They're not bogged down on one-off requests, right? Help yourself and get what you need. Whether or not they're customizable or simply just static downloads, they're resources at your fingertips. When we talk about impactful or scalable personalization, we're talking about leveraging dynamic templates and variable data printing to create localized high impact content with ease, right? That's a big part of it in the system is how do we talk to locally or with specific demographics for different audience? You know, it's one marketing team serving many, maybe 100 plus partners out there that all have different needs and requests. So how do we actually be able to serve all those different segments of our business? And certainly we want to measure impact and maximize results so we can get real-time insights into our partner activity. We can look at content performance. We can look at campaign ROI so we can double down on what works and eliminate what's not working. And finally, when we scale with confidence, we're able to support our global channels. We offer multilingual support, multiple format campaigns, as well as keeping your brand voice consistent and protected. That's the confidence that systems like MarcomCentral will provide for you guys out in the field, locking down the elements that users can't manipulate and then opening them up that things that they can, but also by maintaining brand standards like font face, point sizes, branded colors, et cetera, that we actually make available to our end users, but we want to maintain the brand integrity. One of the things that we talk about a lot at MarcomCentral is the rogue sales reps. And I'm sure there's a few people chuckling right now because there's always a few in the organization that tend to just bypass the marketing department, bypass the design team and says, I'll just create a quick flyer for my folks. And they use the wrong logo, they use the wrong font face, the wrong colors. And again, that distills the messaging. It breaks down the trust and the brand that we've built over time. So how do we actually enforce those types of restrictions, but also allow them to go in there and customize it with their personalization data, whether or not it's their contact information or imagery like their headshot or a co-branded logo. So a little bit deeper dive and empower partners with channel teams. I think, you guys can read these slides in here as well, but, the quote in here or the statistic is that over 70% of B2B organizations now rely on an ecosystem with partners to meet customer expectations, drive innovation, and achieve revenue goals. So this is vital now to organization success. So when we talk about how to empower these partners and these channel teams, we give them that personalized brand experience. We can reduce the one-off request and that rogue marketing I just spoke about. But we can do brand approved assets on demand, but we also may need to put approval processes into our system. So we may need people to request things and then have a general manager or a manager approve those materials. So depending on the workflow, easy to replicate in the system, but the idea is that these assets are brand approved where users can access them on demand, download them, or customize them at will if they need to. A little bit deeper dive into the scalable and personalization aspects. Again, I'm going to read the quote in here, but personalized campaigns drive up to 10 times higher response rates, with 95% of companies seeing a 3 times increase in ROI. So Gartner warns that without adaptive personalization, customers are 3 to 2 times more likely to regret a purchase. So personalization, right? That's key today, right? Now, we're not talking about just direct mail campaigns, but we're talking about all levels of communications, whether or not be an email, whether or not be a flyer, whether or not be correspondence. Anything that's personalized using our name, or even speaking to us demographically or talking to us as a segment of an audience, resonates a little bit more with that audience. So we're going to make sure that it's brand consistent. We're going to use data to drive that personalization. And then, of course, we can have a scalable workflow based around that. So depending on our tech stacks and how we're utilizing these things, again, automation is key. So we can actually do more with less. But with personalized campaigns, again, we're driving a 10 times higher response rates than without personalization. And then how do we measure the impact, maximize those results? So most industry executives surveyed see 70% see precision analytics as a way to better optimize the ROI of their marketing investments. So without this, no one knows exactly how things are working. And there's a lot of tools like that that are already out there that are in place in organizations that do not provide analytics. And I'll call out SharePoint as one of those. It is a great tool for housing assets. It's not very graphical. It's more of a utility, but there is no analytics that are associated to it. So how do we identify the top performing assets? How do we, most importantly, identify assets that are not performing? We can minimize the resources to build those, right? So we can optimize our campaign effectiveness by knowing what works and what does not work. But we're allowing the data to drive our decisions. We have a graphical interface that gives lots of pie charts and bar charts, and it's very quickly easy to see how things are being processed inside our portals. But most importantly, it shows us what's also not working. So it allows us to forecast, it allows us to reshape those budgets and apply those resources to things that are working out in the field rather than just doing what we think works. The analytics and the business intelligence behind the scenes is imperative to a successful launch, but also imperative to the future of an organization and how they spend their money. And finally, how do we scale with confidence? Here, organizations that implement automation in their marketing operations experience almost a 15% increase in sales productivity and over a 12% reduction in marketing overhead. So together, that's about almost a 30% savings in not only time, but also in productivity. So that's really key. That's the part of that growing your ecosystem so that it all works together to empower those channel teams, right? So we allow multi-format output. So again, digital versus print. How is it going to be used or consumed? We actually offer multi-language and localization support. So our portals are available up to 36 different languages. So as internationalization for some clients go, we can support all those areas of need, whether or not they're overseas or in-house, right? But we also have brand governance tools in place that we know that we can send our messaging out into the wild in this brand portal that people cannot go off brand. We want to empower them to use this system. We want them to make sure that it's user friendly, that they get what they need, and that they can get out very quickly. So those are the 4 tenets that we're going to talk about. Now I'm going to actually show those. I'm going to jump over into a live demo real quick, and then we'll come back and kind of summarize a few of the items that we talked about today. All right, so this is an example of a branded portal. This is a fictitious company called Jensen Financial, but this is a tool that Jensen Financial uses to reach their people out in the field. Upon logging in, and it is a secured login site, there's a lot of integrations that we can do to accommodate even this by either a single sign-on or by a Samuel integration. So there's a lot of things that we can do to bring users in and use the data that's already associated to the user to drive templates inside of our system, right? Data-driven personalization. So when we look at this automatically, when I log in, I know as a channel partner that I'm in Jensen Financial, right? I can have banners. I can set this up however I want. These sites are completely customizable, meaning that there's HTML and style sheets that are driving this information. So each portal is branded uniquely for the clients that they serve, right? They're also responsive by design. So again, we're productivity, whether or not they're on their phone or a tablet or a desktop, we're able to accommodate that in the design. Now, the homepage is great. It even has personalization in here. We talk about that power of personalization. For this example, I'm Orion K. Pax today, but I am also an independent financial advisor for Jensen Financial, which means that I'm out in the field and I have my own clients, but I'm an independent contractor. I'm able to use the services of Jensen Financial to farm my network, but Jensen wants to make sure that if I have access to these materials, that everything that I use is on brand and on point. So these are the different categories you can see in here. And in fact, I can click a link in here that goes to a category page where I can actually see all the categories. So these are just quick buckets about things that are available in the system. And we're only going to take a look at a couple of these to kind of drive our point home. Again, we have a short time today with everybody on the call, but we want to kind of talk about a few examples that resonate with those topics that we're discussing. But of course, there's other avenues in here. Remember, we're talking about multi-channel, so not everything is print driven. So there's digital delivery. We can actually customize PowerPoint presentations. We can actually do social media. We can even manage promotional products. So like I said, integrations out to procurement systems. But we have kitting opportunities in here as well, but we can also house video examples and even customize video. So there's a number of different products that are available within the system because we're all focused here on a multi-tenant output, right? So depending on the needs, how are we consuming the data? And one thing we can certainly tell you from a long time, again, Marcom's been around for over 26 years here, that we've seen that shift, that everything used to be printed, but the digital age is in full swing. So there's a lot more opportunity to serve your clients digitally, whether or not that's with an email or an HTML file, but also with resizable ads or digital signage that people are using today in storefronts. So when we talk about, dispersed field teams, we're not only talking about agents out in the field, we're also talking about maybe franchise locations, right? If I have over 15 or even 100 locations, how do I make sure that the message is consistent regardless of region that I'm serving customers in, right? We want to keep that consistent brand message in here. So the first example we'll talk about, actually, let me put one other thing in here, is that we're talking about user data driven. So in our system, we have the availability in here to have profile attributes. So a lot of this information, if we're doing single or sign-on or SAML integrations, a lot of this information from users can be passed over. So if I already know, or the system already knows who I am, my title, my location, my information, I can actually pre-fill those templates. So from a user standpoint, that's a great advantage because now I'm only spending time on the customization aspects instead of rekeying in my personal data every time. That's important because, again, speed is time, time is money. The user profile is great, but it's not only text-based. Let me go back up here, but it can also be image-based. So we have maybe our headshot or maybe logos that we use that are associated to us. If we're an independent contractor, we might have our own logo that we're applying to the system. These image collections, this information that is associated to a user drives some of those personalization fields inside the system. Now, if we want to find tools or find our assets quickly, there's always a search bar that's handy for us right here inside the system. So I'm actually going to start off with a co-brand piece. And I'm simply just going to type in co-brand in my search engine. All the assets behind the scenes are tagged. Even if you're using digital asset management tools, there's a lot of tagging of files behind the scenes. There is artificial intelligence being utilized in some of these tagging endeavors as well behind the scenes. There's always a question about how AI is being utilized. So we are using AI in our systems with the hopes of expanding more AI. But again, we need to pay attention to our clients' need because there is a guardrail around that brand identity. And we want to make sure that we're consistent with the messaging and brand and that we don't let too much be influenced from an outside piece. So that's kind of a slippery slope that we're walking right now. And I think everybody is with AI and how to use those tools best without really kind of depleting our messaging or watering down our brand. So as we search for products, you can see that this is a faceted search. So everybody who's an Amazon Prime member says, hey, these look familiar, right? So these are customizable as well. They're easy to find assets if I can filter through. Maybe I don't know what I'm looking for, but I know the audience and I know the division and the type of file I'm looking for. So all these will help them whittle down what they're looking for inside the catalog. And that catalog, it may contain 50 items. It may contain over 1,000 items. So again, how do users find what they need quickly, right? Empowering them to find it. So we're going to click on this product. Each product has a thumbnail, a product name, and a description. There's rating systems, there's shortcuts in here. There is pricing associated to it, and there's shipping. There is an e-commerce side wrapped around this entire thing. So depending on how you're servicing folks, again, we can either charge for them, we can hide pricing, we can allow them to pay by purchase order or by a user budget, or simply pay by credit card if we are taking cash for these examples inside the system. So to customize that, I simply click the customize link. And a lot of my products are going to be very similar in nature, regardless of the output format or the fields or the product types. Our forms are very consistent. So there's a unique user experience going on inside our system where there's consistency. I know the forms on the left, they're prompts. They ask me via dropdown or a fill-in. How do I handle that information? Well, remember I talked about smart templates in here. So based off of our options, I may actually facilitate up to 3 lines of business or even more based on my role. So if I choose banking, or let's choose investing. If I choose investing, you'll notice that the headlines are going to change. So it's more of an investing type headline. And the gallery that's associated to it is also going to change. These are more kind of meeting request or graphic oriented. If I change this to loans, I get another set of headline and I get different imagery that's associated to it. So now I'm filtering out the actual effect based off of the cause. So I'm choosing what that theme is, and by choosing that, I'm going to drop down the filtered options for headlines, and I'm filtering out the imagery that are available to me. So smart templates, consolidating business lines, and very easily, right? So I'm going to go back to banking. I'm going to choose a headline this time. Let's say, let's go investing the future. Change our gallery in here to, let's go for more of an abstract building in here. Now, this is great too, because we talk about programmability in the system, ease of use. So if I choose the branch name in here, I'm going to say I'm in Denver today. I'm not asking me to choose my address, my phone number, the website, fax number, if you're actually still using a fax, right? There's nothing that's asking me for this. So a lot of this information is data driven behind the scenes. We're using external data files to populate data that's actually selected in these drop-down menus. The advantages to that is that I can make changes to those external data files that may be touching 30 or 50 templates. And if I update it one place, those updates are universal and they happen in real time. So I don't ever have a lag in there. And that really becomes critical when we start talking about risk management and disclaimers and those types of things, because we can manage those as well. Now, if I do say I want to be co-branded, I can bring in opportunities. So now I do have to type in the co-branded company name that I'm working with in here. I have some galleries for some co-brands in here. I'm going to bring in Sinacora. The other ideas is that they could browse and upload their own file if they didn't know it. This is also part of that image collection. So if there was something on file, they could repurpose it. But I'm going to say that this is, what is it? Since put that in there. We'll make up an address in here, 123 Main Street. And we'll be in Anytown, USA. And phone numbers in here, however we want to put these in. I'll just put in Marcom down here as well. Now, the great thing about these is that there are pre-fill options built into our system. So if I fill out this form one time, I can actually save that form information. I can reorder that same form if there hasn't been changes to it. So there's a lot of tools in here to facilitate the reordering of applications. But if I hit preview, this is where Fusion Pro starts to come involved, right? Fusion Pro is now taking these assets or these values on the left-hand side of the form, and they're injecting them into my template, right? I'm not asking anybody from the graphics department to get involved. I'm not asking anybody to typeset this piece for me. But if I look at it, right, it's pulling out the information that I manually typed in, but it's maintaining the font size and the point size and the font face of the original design, right? The Jensen Financial for my Denver address comes out automatically based on my selection because all that information is stored somewhere else, right? And that information, again, like we said, can be real-time updated and added as we bring in new franchises or new locations within the system. But it gives us the opportunity to start to customize these things without really having, again, to bog down the request into our marketing team. Investing for the Future with Jensen Financial was the headline I choose, and it's maintaining my brand standards where this is in all caps. I wasn't able to change the body copy in this example, and that's part of the brand governance, right? I'm not allowing them to change every aspect of the template. I'm only allowing them to change in the image that they want to use, the headline that they want to use for more impact, brand it to the left-hand side, and then add their contact information and the branding, co-branding information on the left-hand side as well. Locking down those elements is brand governance, right? They're only able to interact with the elements that I let them interact with. Now, when I say done, now we actually start to look at a little bit more of that omni-channel distribution. Certainly, I maybe have a print vendor hooked up to this. So if I do, I can add to cart, place my order. This file gets delivered to my print vendor. They pick it up. They know the quantity I need, the paper stock. They print it, and then they ship it back out to me. In the digital world, now I can download this. And that download is in a multi-file format. So I may need a PDF in low res because I might be attaching it to an email. But I may want to use the high-res PDF if I'm actually in person, right? I can deliver a PDF imposition file that's already imposed. So I may not have a vendor hooked up, but it still allows me to download that file and take it to a local printer and print it out. Or I may just simply want the JPEG that I can attach as well into an email and send it back out digitally. So this download allows me to put it to my desktop and then repurpose it however I want in any different file format that's made available. The other availability is to share it directly from the system. So again, we start to talk about ecosystems, right? If I'm already in here as a sales rep and I'm branding something, hey, why would I want to download it and attach it to an email to send it back out when I can actually send it out directly from the portal itself? So it pre-fills with my name, my email address. It puts in the subject line as the product title, but these are all editable. I can put in additional names in here as well, separated by semicolons, and I can add additional messages, and I can choose which file types that I want to send. So maybe in this case, I'd put in the PDF low res or the JPEG. So we're talking about multi-distribution methods inside the system, not only different file types, but different deliveries. I can share electronically, I can share download, and I should actually point out here at the share screen, there's also a way to share via social. That's going to come back in our next example as well. So when I do share, I have through integrations, the ability now to take a branded asset and now push them to Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Now, these are some things that people would never think are possible to allow my field teams to do. But by locking in these assets and allowing personalization, we know that our messaging is on brand, on point, every single time, regardless of who's accessing and touching these particular pieces. So let's go to another product in here. The one I do want to use today is a social media example. And we'll go ahead and use our LinkedIn version in here. So this one's already sized for a LinkedIn post. It says in the description that it's 1024 by 512. That is standard by the LinkedIn schematics there for something that's unique for their systems. Of course, Facebook, Instagram, all of those will have different sizes that can be built accordingly. But again, this is something that I possibly would never allow my users to do, is create a social media post, because it may be off brand. But now I'm allowing them to customize an element in here that does maintain my brand standards, right? It's going to come out exactly as it's in here. I'm still allowing them to choose a gallery if they want to. They can change the name of the webinar. Again, it'd be unique to them, but you can start to see how information is pre-filled in here. There's 11 a.m. start times, but I'm going to go ahead and use my pre-fill options in here just for time constraints today. And I'm going to go ahead and use one in here for Sloan Franklin. Now, it brings us back in here. It's a different headshot. But again, if I'm using my image collection, I have Steve and Sloan available to me through my image collection. So if I switch it back out, I'll use my Steven sample in here today, and I'm going to change the date of this webinar to next week. And we'll say, well, we'll get it past Labor Day. We'll do it on the 8th. Now, I'll use the same start times in here as well. But again, pre-filling information, we're going to allow data to drive this. I've got a different image in here. Again, Fusion Pro is my composition engine, is composing these items and producing them. Now, when I mentioned Fusion Pro, it is baked into the system, but Fusion Pro is also a standalone application for commercial printers. So there's a scalability option with Fusion Pro that gets you all the way from a desktop version to an on-prem solution for a server. Now, if I wasn't clear here too, MarcomCentral again is a cloud-based application. The only on-prem again would be for that server edition of Fusion Pro. But very quickly now in my preview, everything is maintained my brand standards. The capital letters are capitalized. I've got italicized there for my title. I've got my headshot cut out into that circle, but it's got my Jensen Financial logo and my disclaimer information and this beautiful picture of the golden wheat, right? I could change that out if I wanted to. Maybe I want to use a rock climber. Again, I can preview this as many times until I get it right, until I'm ready to go ahead and proceed to the next step. So social media now starts to come into play, not only print aspects, but now digital. So as I say done, right, I could download this and then I could share it to my own stream. But again, if I want to share this, now I've got that share via social. So this one is actually only linked up, only available for LinkedIn, as it is a LinkedIn account. It's going to bring in this JPEG image in there, and automatically now I'm posting this into my social channels, right? As an independent rep who may be boosting my own network or my own farming my own area, right? This is a way to reach my clients, right, that are the clients of Jensen Financial via me as an outside sales rep, but still being able to use all their data and all their resources to send something up to help grow business, right? And go back to that stat, right? That personalization will build up over 22% more sales by reducing the time into my marketing team by over 12%. So ultimately, this is saving designers to getting involved, and it's also allowing you to get to market faster. That's one of the biggest things about these branded portals is not only is it servicing clients out in the field, they're able to get to the market faster because I can immediately now post this. I don't have to wait 24 hours, 48 hours for a proof. It's real time, and through my permissions level, I'm able to post this immediately for a webinar. So great speed to market. The last thing I'm going to show in here today, too, to kind of tie this back in together is analytics, right? How do we get the ROI from our investment? Well, analytics is a great way to do it. In fact, when you think about analytics, and I said this is powered by Tableau in our system, but when we're doing something like this, right now we're talking about a graphical interface that very quickly shows me the health of my system. At the top, you can go back. I went back over a year here. So I went to my start date of the calendar year of 2024. I can filter this out by asset groups inside my system. So again, groups are my segmenting of my audience. But very quickly, I can see what asset usage are being utilized. I can see if they're customized or non-customized, which are my static assets. So pretty good balance, actually. More people are using the customized assets rather than the static, mainly because they have more impact, right? If I look at my assets usage by distribution, I still have 65% print and finished goods, but over 25% is going to download, while a few of that is going to email. So there is a digital presence in my portal, and that's great for marketers to know. And over here, I can actually view what assets are being used the most, the 3 Main Street report. And all of these, again, are graphical, but you can also dial into them. So they all have ways to click into them. You can get as granular as you want inside these systems. But a lot of this information is really impactful for our marketers, right? Because in here, they're looking at how our partners are using content, how they're driving leads, are they closing deals, what's optimizing future campaigns. Assets by group, top 10 assets. There's another great one in here too, which is called overall asset customization. So if I actually want to see what fields are being customized, right, I can drill down into this. Now, the other screen while this loads was showing you what assets were used and which ones were not. That's very powerful as well, because we may be spending a lot of resource on building assets that nobody's utilizing. So let's not waste our time and money on that. Let's find these through this data to find out what's working and how it's working and replicate that, the force multiplier, if you will. So I can see my top 10 custom text customizations as well as my image customizations. So I know what people want, right? But I also know what's working in the system. And in fact, 86% of my personalization is text, while only 14% is imagery. That might be helpful. So if I'm building brochures down the line, hey, maybe they don't want to change out that main image. The most important thing for them is to get their logo or co-branded logo on there, their headshot, and their own personal information in there. Those are the things that really drive business. The last thing in here that I want to talk about goes back into brand control, which is users with no activity. Now, this is really important, because whenever you launch tools like this, again, we're trying to grow the ecosystem. We're trying to get our channel partners to empower themselves, to serve themselves, right? The old analogy, if I teach you to fish, you can eat every day. But if I have to buy you fish, right, it's a little bit different. So you have to keep repeating this. I'd rather teach you to fish. So empowering those users, they're happier. These portals are open 24/7. They're not bogging down my marketing team, but they're also not hitting in the business hours, especially with time zone constraints. They may be 3 or 4 time zones away. Doesn't matter if it's midnight, go into the portal and find what you need. But with users with no activity, this is important because user adoption for these tools and these systems is vital. So how do we re-engage with users that have not been active inside our portals? Well, simply looking at my users with no activity report, I very clearly can see my partners or my channel partners that aren't accessing the system. So how do we get them to adopt these? Well, by having these reports, now I can re-engage with them. I may have a whole campaign into the adoption of my online portal or my Marcom portal. So by interacting with these folks, now I can gamify the system. I can actually challenge them, maybe, with gift cards, or place orders, and the people who have the most orders receive a $100 gift card to Amazon or something of that nature, right? But there's all kinds of tips and tricks to boost user adoption. But first, we have to know who is not using the system to implement those. So that's really vital as into user adoption and making the portal a complete success. Now, in summary in here, because again, I am cognitive of our time. And if you haven't already, guys, use that chat window if you have any questions. We're happy to talk to you guys after this. Remember, this is to give you ideas about what's in the marketplace, but then also how we can help solve some of those issues. So please reach out here after the webinar if you need more information. Or again, use the chat to drop any kind of questions in there. We'll be happy to answer those questions offline. So the key takeaways today, and I hope I illustrated those for you today, is we're empowering partners with a self-service access. Yep. On-demand brand portal 24/7, pre-approved, or if we need to put approval processes that are in there, but generally marketing has already vetted these assets. That's why they're in the portal. We can maintain brand consistency everywhere, as you saw that, whether or not it's social media, whether or not it's a flyer. I know that all my information is on brand, on point, and it's most up to date. It stays compliant for those across regions, across channels, and across all partners. Am I personalizing at scale? Absolutely. These forms are helping me do that. Not only am I delivering localized relevant messaging, but I'm also using that personalization to boost sales, whether or not I'm personalizing my client's first name or if I'm actually bringing my own personalization into the information. Somebody's actually taken the time to address them uniquely rather than just a all-in-one type of asset. Are we using data-driven in our ecosystem growth? I hope we're growing with that, right? The built-in analytics and the business intelligence show us how to maximize our ROI, right? So we can use that, but we can also use that data to drive the user personal information. We can use that data to drive location information. So a lot of less touches, a lot more governance by the brand because those things are happening behind the scenes, like disclaimers. And finally, can we streamline our operations and reduce requests? Absolutely, I hope so. Because by eliminating these one-off requests, we're freeing up that marketing team to really drill in to generate business. And for you guys out in the field, we want you to focus on selling, not finding or creating content. This content is available to you. How do I have access to it? How do I get it out in the field? Well, MarcomCentral will allow you to do that. Here I can come in, I can access and interact with assets that it can be personalized, but I can immediately get those to market by downloading them, sharing them, posting them to social, or sending them out to be printed. Right? I'm facilitating all those needs in a much faster fashion than an old traditional way of inbounding a request into marketing, waiting 3 to 5 days for approve, and then another week before I actually get it. By that time, the opportunity's missed. So we need to be able to be quick, we need to be nimble, but we need to serve our users and those field teams so that they can serve their actual clients more succinctly, more on brand, but with succinct messaging and branding content locked in. So I hope I was able to show you guys a little bit something here today. I'm going to kick it back over to Robert to kind of put a bow on this, but I appreciate your time today and hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Robert?
Hey, thanks, Eric. That was a great presentation. And again, thank you all for taking the time out of your day to join us. And really, there's a lot more to this. Today's goal was to touch on the high points, to kind of touch on those 4 key topics that really drive ecosystem growth, and then give you just kind of a taste of where Marcom can add value in streamlining your operations and improving efficiency. So as Eric had mentioned, we do have the Q&A portion open. I do want to be cognizant of everyone's time here. And I know a lot of times questions come up after the fact, I'd say probably about 90% of the time. So just a little housekeeping item. We are going to be going ahead and sending out a recording of this webinar. So you can go back and revisit it for your own use. And we do encourage you to share it internally with your teams. It's a great resource. And again, really, I think where we can add the most value for you is if you have questions about it, reach out to myself. You can see my contact information there. It'll be in the follow-up email. Let's just explore what your environment is. Very open conversation. I'd love to have those. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up today. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out to join us, and we hope you found the presentation informative. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the week. Bye.